The idea of Sami Zayn as a WrestleMania main event against Roman or Cody or Roman and Cody is done. It's done. It's over. It's kaput. Get out of here. We're moving on. Welcome to the Talk About podcast. I'm your host, TW. Listen, I know you got so many choices for your entertainment, so whoever you are and wherever you may be, thank you so much for spending just a few minutes of your day here with me. Our top story is going to be the latest developments in the Sami Zayn Bloodline story. Now listen, as the Bloodline turns has become my favorite soap opera going on in the world. I haven't really watched soap operas in a long time. You know, I used to watch them with, I wasn't like tuning in personally, but as a little kid, right? You know what I mean? Like you live in a house with a bunch of women, they watching the soap opera, so they was on. I ain't gonna act like I wasn't watching them, but like I wasn't going on my way to watch them. You know what I'm saying? But I digress. You know, Tad and Dixie, all that. So my favorite storyline right now, I've said this before, I think this is the best wrestling storyline ever, to be honest with you. Like just all the layers to this Bloodline story, right? Like, you know, the fact Roman Reigns is on, a 3-year run as champion. And they haven't gotten to a point yet where this truly, honestly feels stale. You know, they're putting layers and layers and layers into this story where, like, I'm still invested, man. I'm still invested. And the cool thing about it, right? The cool thing about it at this point is there's so many different, like, chapters of this story to be closed, right? So we got to close the Sami KO portion of this story, right? Which at one point was just the KO portion of this story, because he was like a thorn in Roman Reigns' side for a long time. Then the whole Sami thing happened, right? And we got to close this part of the chapter. Then when at some point when that's done, before this is all over, we're gonna have to get to Jay, and we're actually at a stage in this storytelling where the J part was bubbling underneath, even though it was front and center at the beginning of this story. Like, it's become kind of a background story for a while, right? But where we're at now, it's like undeniable. Like, you can't get away. Like, Roman is not going to get out of this. He's not going to just, you know, one day drop the titles and then go off to his planet to rest like Thanos after he killed half the earth. Like, Roman's not going to get to do that without dealing with Jay, right? Like, Jay Uso is going to have to get some restitution. Like he said, Shannon Sharp in Hard Knocks 2001. Like, you're going to have to deal with Jay before you walk away from this, Roman. So yeah, I mean, this story is just great, man. Like, I really, truly, honestly cannot remember another story this detailed, this layered, and just really just kept me tuning in, even for like the little developments. And where we are right now is a perfect example of the little incremental developments in the story that are still being done so compellingly that you have to tune in for them, right? Like, we know where this is going. At least we think we know where this is going, right? Like, we believe this is going to end up with Sami and KO challenging the Usos at WrestleMania for the tag team titles. But the way they're doing this, right? Like, predictability be damned. It's interesting, right? Like, this is good stuff. This is good storytelling, and there's no way around it. And, like, you know, damn it, that's what we're here for. That is what we are here for. Give it up for everybody involved with putting this thing together. So the latest twist and turn here happened. Let's go back to Monday night, right? So Monday night, Sami turned the page. He turned the page from focusing on Roman and trying to get his his retribution that way. He's still committed to bringing down the Bloodline. He came out on Monday night after, you know, the whole Elimination Chamber and all that. And he's still passionate and focused on taking down the Bloodline. And he made sure to tell the crowd, you know, this story is never over, but now it's in the final chapter. And I thought that had multiple meanings of him saying that, right? On one hand, the whole point of this promo he did on Monday night was to kind of turn the page away from him versus Roman, which is important, and we'll come back to that. But I think the other part of that, I think there's another important part of that I'll get to after we review what's happened so far. Okay. So he told the crowd, this story's never over. But now we're in the final chapter, and he called out KO, and he told KO, look, I'm going to see the bloodline crumble one way or another, but we need to do this together, right? But then KO told Sami, listen, the only reason I helped you out of Elimination Chamber is so that your family didn't have to watch you take the beat down like my family had to watch me take the beat down at Royal Rumble while you stood there and did nothing, right? So then KO told Sami, if you need help taking down the bloodline, you need to go ask your buddy Jay. And then he left him. Okay, he left him just sitting there off that. That was actually a really cold line. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, you love Jay so much. That's your brother. Why don't you go with him? So again, we think we know where this is going, but we're not even close to getting there yet. So KO left Sami hanging right after Sami made the passionate plea for them to work together and take down the bloodline. And by the way, the fans were all over this. The fans cheered wildly for every bit of this segment, right? When Sami kind of shifted his focus into talking about the taking down the bloodline, he didn't target the Usos specifically, but he just said taking down the bloodline, and he didn't talk about Roman. So you could tell, right? You could tell just by watching that, what was going on here is that he was trying to shift gears. Crowd didn't push back one bit. Crowd did not push back one bit. They didn't boo, you deserve another shot. None of that. But it's important to note, they weren't turning on Sami either. They're still very much into Sami, still hanging on Sami's every word, living and dying with the stuff Sami says. So now let's go to Friday night, okay? So on Friday night, Sami confronted Jimmy. He confronted Jimmy in the ring. Jimmy spent the whole night trying to find out what's up with Jay, right? And so Paul Heyman tells Jimmy, you need to go call Jay out in the middle of the ring, and y'all need to figure out what's going on. And he even went so far as to tell Jimmy that Roman is coming to SmackDown next week, and if you don't deal with Jay tonight, then the tribal chief is going to deal with you next week, right? So Jimmy's in the ring, calling out Jay, begging Jay for a resolution, because again, Jay has left the bloodline hanging, right? They don't know if he's in, they don't know if he's out. They know that things are not good between him and Roman. Like, that tension is as obvious as ever. So now we got to see what's going to happen with Jimmy and Jay, right? I mean, we haven't had any indication that Jimmy and Jay have beef. If anything, through it all, the understanding has been that Jimmy and Jay got each other's back no matter what, right? Like, even going all the way back to when Jimmy was gone and he first came back, he was on Jay's side no matter what. If you think back to that Hell in a Cell, right? Like, Jay was never going to submit to Roman. He was never going to bow down to Roman. He was never going to, say I quit, none of that. The thing that made him give in was when Jimmy came in the ring and Jimmy was still dealing with his injury, and Roman put Jimmy in the guillotine, and that's what made Jay give in, right? So Jimmy and Jay's bond has never been questioned, but it's just the fact that Jimmy being part of the bloodline, if the Usos as a team have to be part of the bloodline, that seems to be the part where there's like, a little bit of friction. And you could totally understand that, right? Because Jay's like, yo, you my brother. I'm not leaving you no matter what. But I don't know if I mess with them. And I mean, like, look, the dope thing about it is that's such a relatable situation, right? Because you can be cool with somebody, but not cool with everybody. And even if they family, like that's a totally real thing. So that dynamic is just really dope to see how this dynamic is going to play out. So we had Sami and Jimmy in the ring, and Sami is basically telling Jimmy the same thing he told Jay. He's telling him like, look, man, I'm going to bring the bloodline down no matter what I got to do, but you don't have to go down with the ship. Right? He's telling them, you don't got to go down. I'm bringing this thing down, but you don't got to go down. There's a way out for you. And Jimmy told Sami, look, man, you made your choice, and your choice had consequences. He said, you the one who chose to pull the trigger. And he's talking about when Sami hit Roman with the chair at Royal Rumble, right? And he's like, look, what was I supposed to do? What was I supposed to do after you did that, right? So then Jimmy attacks Sami. He's beating him down. And then they both get a little bit distracted because they look up into the crowd and they see Jay starting to coming down through the crowd, coming down towards the ring. So Jimmy sees Sami coming down. He goes over and he's looking at Sami. He's looking at Jay and he's like, yo, come on, man. Come on, get in here. Let's do this. And as Jimmy is distracted, Sami lays out Jimmy with a haluva kick. And then Sami gets out of the ring as he sees Solo coming down to help out. And Jay just kind of stands there and watches the whole time, right? Jay just kind of stands there and watches the whole time. And that's where this is getting tricky. Because if that was Roman in there, or if that was Heyman in there, Jay doing nothing seems kind of okay. It seems kind of okay. But again, just like we just talked about, Jimmy and Jay, they the ones that don't have, they don't have no beef. They don't have no rift. It was them before there was any bloodline, right? So the fact that Jay didn't do anything while Jimmy got kicked, man, like that really, that brought up a big question as far as where Jay's loyalty lies, right? So the question remains about Jay's loyalty, right? Roman's coming next week, so we got to get things straight between him and Jimmy, and that's going to put the spotlight once again back on Jay. Because if Roman comes out and he's getting all in Jimmy's face, or if he starts to beat Jimmy down, right, what's Jay going to do? The last time Roman and Jay were in the ring together, Jay was hesitating to take out Sami with the chair. Roman put the chair in Jay's hand. Roman got mad that Jay was hesitating. He was mushing Jay, and we kind of got the feeling that Jay was going to hit Roman. But then Sami missed Roman with the spear, and he knocked Jay out the ring, and we all know how that ended. So, I mean, listen, this is a beautiful thing. I think we're 4 weeks out from WrestleMania, right? And so this story is slowly playing out, but we're getting to good parts, right? It doesn't feel like they're wasting time. It feels like they're slow playing each part of the story, but it doesn't feel like they're wasting time, right? Like Jay and Roman is an important moment. Like Jay, now we don't know for a fact Jay and Roman are coming face to face next week, but we know Roman and Jimmy are coming face to face next week. And depending on what happens between Roman and Jimmy, that could lead Roman and Jay to come face to face next week. So, I mean, look, the beautiful thing is you have to see what's going to happen next. And I say this to people all the time, right? Every time I hear somebody say, the Attitude Era doesn't hold up, yada, 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 yada. I'm like, you know what? In a lot of ways, you're right. Because now the production is so much better. The wrestling is so much better. There's so many ways in which the WWE product and wrestling overall is 100 times better than it was during the time we call the Attitude Era. But the thing that wrestling today can never seem to match is that feeling of just needing to see what's going to happen next. Having no idea what's going to happen next, but just, I got to be there. I got to be tuned in. I got to see what's going to happen Monday night. And right now with this story, especially because we're talking about a story that's been going on for the better part of 3 years, and we're into a point now where there have to be inflections. There have to be turning points. There have to be, because we're so close to WrestleMania. It's such a big point. And I don't believe that the bloodline is going to just be the same as it is today after WrestleMania. It's almost impossible. There's no way they're going to send that many people home unhappy. Can you imagine if we get everybody out to LA, right? If we get everybody out to LA and at the end of that weekend, the Usos beat KO and Sami, Roman beats Cody, and the bloodline is status quo? Can you imagine that? I do not think people will be happy about that one bit, man. I'm telling you, it's not that we're not enjoying this bloodline story. Again, the story is great, but there has to be a beginning, middle, and end. I was watching the AEW, I was watching the A&E documentary where they did on the NWO. And I was like, obviously, once they got to the point where they talked about, the Sting versus Hogan and all of that, like, that was a sore point for me. Because that was up to that point by far my favorite story in the history of wrestling. But they screwed it up so badly, right? Because they had no concept of the idea of the NWO having like a beginning, middle, and end, and having like an excellent antagonist to the NWO, right? This story, as much as we're enjoying this, as cool as the bloodline is, as great as this has been a vehicle for Roman Reigns to finally be the unquestioned, head of the table, top of the show, whatever you want to call him, there has to be an end. Because you don't want it to jump the shark at some point. And some people might argue that it already has. Some people might argue that it had already gotten a little formulaic. I'm not in that camp. I still think this story is excellent, and I think this story has a lot of fun places it can still go. But I think I can't see the bloodline existing as it is coming out of WrestleMania. So it feels like we are on, not just the road to WrestleMania, but like it feels like we're on the road to a resolution of a great, great, great story. Right? Now, here's an important thing to remember about everything we saw from Sami Zayn this week. The crowd went crazy for all of it. Like, the crowd is fully invested in Sami Zayn. And part of me thought that was just going to be when they were in Canada, right? But on Friday, they were somewhere in Indiana. The crowd was still hot for Sami Zayn. They were still eating up everything he did. They still were totally into the drama between him and Jimmy and him and Jay and the whole deal. So Sami is over, right? Like, Sami is over. People are into Sami. They genuinely care about what happens to Sami Zayn, right? And when Cody came out, by the way, nobody booed Cody. Nobody booed the idea of the conversation between Cody and Roman. Nobody chanted for, somebody might have chanted for Sami. I don't recall specifically, but it certainly, if there was people that were chanting for Sami during Cody's segment, it wasn't enough to really hear or make a difference, right? So the idea of Sami Zayn as a WrestleMania main event against Roman or Cody or Roman and Cody is done. It's done. It's over. It's kaput. Get out of here. We're moving on. Okay. But it also doesn't mean that Sami will never get his chance to be on top. It also does not mean that Sami will never get his chance to be on top. I could totally and easily see Sami Zayn winning Money in the Bank. What? I said I could totally see Sami Zayn winning Money in the Bank because look, Money in the Bank comes at that time of the year when it's kind of a dead zone, right? It's usually in like May to June, right? You got time, but it's after WrestleMania. It's before SummerSlam, right? There's a little bit of a dead zone. I could totally see Sami Zayn getting a chance to get his shot. Listen, Sami Zayn with Money in the Bank, people will lose their minds. I'm telling you, look at what they did with Liv Morgan last year, right? They gave her shots against Becky that she was never going to win. She was never going to win against Becky, but they did it in a way where people were able to get behind Liv. People were really feeling Liv. And then they gave her the Money in the Bank. She won the Money in the Bank. She had a run with the title. You could argue whether or not it was good for her. But the point is, at a time when it was kind of dry from a storyline perspective, they went back to the heat that Liv had in her feud with Becky. So I could 100% see them coming back to this heat that Sami Zayn is collecting right now. This fan love that Sami Zayn is collecting right now. I don't think this is going away, and I don't think that Sami not being a part of the WrestleMania main event facing Cody or Roman means that Sami is not going to get his shot to be the WWE champion or the Universal champion or whichever one. Like, as a matter of fact, I would even I can't guarantee anything, obviously, but I would not be shocked at all, man. Like I could totally see I could totally see Sami winning Money in the Bank and obviously at some point cashing that in to become the WWE champion. Because again, the crowd is hot for Sami. People like Sami. I think there's a great chance, by the way, speaking of how much people love Sami, I think there's a great chance that the first time the WWE tries to capitalize on this love people have for Sami Zayn is by making Sami and KO versus the Usos the main event of night 1 of WrestleMania. I could totally see that. I could totally see that being a thing. But y'all let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think that Sami Zayn is done? Do y'all think Sami Zayn, do you think like do you think that the whole, by the way, let me say this before I get off this subject. There was so much I told you so energy about Sami Zayn on the Twitter timeline. And it's just weird. It's just weird. Because like, yo, you want a cookie? Right? Like, I mean, like you were excited that you were right about a wrestling storyline. Yo, congratulations. Congratulations to you. Okay. Sami didn't win and you were right. Like, who cares? Who cares? We are here to talk about a TV show that we like and to have fun. Like the chest pumping and I told you so and finger wagging, like all of this. Like, yo, wrestling podcasters and personalities, y'all are entirely too concerned with what Dave Meltzer says and does. And I realize that Meltzer has colored a lot of the way that a lot of y'all even see wrestling, right? Like, I mean, me personally, I was never into the wrestling dirt sheets. I didn't have, access to that stuff. So it just wasn't like a thing for me. But like, now in the internet era, in the internet space, everybody's here, right? We're all consuming, the same stuff. But like, of course, Dave Meltzer has his opinions, right? He's going to be biased, for and against certain people. And if you look and listen, it's obvious who are the people that he is biased for and against and all of that stuff. But who cares? Like, who cares? Like, your opinion is your opinion. Watch what you like. You know what I mean? Talk about it however you like. Cheer for the people you think are good. Hate on the people you think are bad. But like, all of this, I told you so. Like, who cares? People seem to be very obsessed with this idea that certain people are trying to drum up a Sami Zayn controversy. And like, I think it's a very valid conversation. The idea that people were going crazy for Sami because they were, right? Like, there was how many of those times during the feeling oozy or not very oozy, right? How many times was that whole bloodline segment just about hearing Sami do the thing? Like, say the line, right? Like, everybody was really excited about Sami. So that was nothing new. Nobody was making that up. And in the past, right, like what we have seen from wrestling, from WWE in particular, is when somebody gets really hot like that, yes, they'll hot shot him the championship, especially coming into WrestleMania. Now, look, when you have a story like a 3-year championship run with Roman Reigns that's going on right now, yes, you don't just hot shot a title run. Like, that's not smart or good business, in my opinion. But I think it was the idea that it could have happened to me was totally believable. But I would have said this: if it was going to happen, it wasn't going to happen at Elimination Chamber. If it was going to happen, it would have had to happen at WrestleMania. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. But it doesn't change the fact that, I said it before and I'll say it again. This right here is by far and away, the best told story that we've ever seen here in wrestling. If you enjoy what we're doing here and you like this type of content, please make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to this channel, and hit that notification bell so you get notified each and every time I drop some brand new content on this page. Really want to get my subscriber numbers up, so help your boy out. Do your boy a favor and hit all them buttons. Subscribe if you listen to this on the podcast. Make sure you drop a comment underneath the podcast page. Drop a little rating on there. Okay, write a little something nice about your boy. Give me a 5-star rating, and help your boy out. All right, let's get that done. Moving right along. I was chatting up with a couple of my bros the other day, okay? And shout out to my man Brian H. Waters, the godfather of the black wrestling diaspora. Shout out to the homie. Shout out to my man Omar, okay? And my man Omar asked a very interesting question, right? He said, when are people going to stop with the whole Logan Paul doesn't belong thing? Now, I thought this was a very good, very interesting question, right? And my answer is not now and maybe never, right? Maybe never. Because here's the thing. The thing that makes the Paul brothers an attraction is that people don't like them. People want to see them lose. I remember they brought Logan Paul back against The Miz and they tried to make him a babyface and people were booing the hell out of Logan Paul. Logan Paul came out there. He was smiling and trying to be a good guy and the crowd was like, whoa, we don't like you. Like, I mean, because he's a very unlikable dude, man. He's a very unlikable dude. I mean, I don't know the guy, but if you just, from a TV personality standpoint, he oozes unlikability, right? He was wearing the NFT card around his neck that was like a couple $100,000 or something crazy like that. You know, people, fair or not, people view being a reality star or a social media star as something that doesn't require real work or talent. I don't think that's true, but that's the way people look at it, right? They see the Paul brothers a lot like they see Tim Tebow. They see him as getting something they don't deserve. And look, the reality is that Logan Paul is very talented, right? Like, you see the stuff he's able to pull off in the ring. He's trained, but you know, he hasn't like trained in the way that like a seasoned wrestler would train, you know, like spending months or years at the performance center learning promos and like all of this stuff. But he's a natural. He's charismatic. He's athletic. Like, he's a natural fit for being a professional wrestler. Like, that's just the truth. That's why, you know, he stepped in. He's able to do these things right away. Even with Jake Paul, right? You know, Jake Paul lost a boxing match earlier today to Tommy Fury. And I was like, yo, the rematch is going to be even more money than this one, because what's going to happen between now and then, Jake Paul is going to use all his social media clout and all his followers and, you know, all of his charisma to drum up interest in a rematch. And you're going to get more people coming in, you know, because just want to see him lose. You know, maybe some people started tuning out because they're like, oh, well, he's not fighting real fighters. And, you know, he's just fighting people he can beat. I'm not tuning into these fights till he fights a real fighter. And then they're going to be like, oh, he got beat and I missed it. Let me pay for the rematch. He's going to really get beat now, right? And then guess what? Gotcha. Because all you're going to do is make him more money. And he might, you know, listen, I don't think he lost the fight on purpose. He lost by decision. He didn't like take a dive or anything like that. But people just want to see these guys lose. They want to see these guys lose because they view them as privileged. They view them as getting spots, getting opportunities that they don't deserve. But again, like Logan Paul, Jake Paul is actually an athlete and he actually trains as a boxer. And it's evident that he is a trained boxer every time he fights somebody who's not a boxer, right? Because that's the thing. Any boxer will tell you, you've been hearing boxers say this for years, like, I don't care if you are the best MMA fighter, right? You get in the ring in a boxing match with a boxer and he's going to take you out because it's the art of boxing. It's just different. It's just different. And you've been seeing that with Jake Paul. That's why he's been winning this. It's not a mistake that he's been winning these fights. And I heard somebody say this and it made perfect sense. Every boxer, when they're being built up to become a title contender, every boxer gets put in the ring with bums. Every boxer gets put in the ring with people who can't fight. Like, next time you see some quote unquote up and coming boxer in the ring with somebody, take a look at the record of the opponent. It'll be like, oh, this is Glass Joe and he's 5-27. And like, you know what I mean? Versus, you know, the new Golden Boy, right? Like, so the strategy that Jake Paul has been taking to build himself up as a fighter, there's nothing uncommon about that. That's not new at all, right? Like, all fighters. So Jake Paul is a boxer. I said all that just to say Jake Paul is a boxer and Logan Paul is a wrestler. Like, I mean, the thing about wrestling, You just got to know how to not get yourself killed. And if you have something to make them look at you as an attraction, i.e. being a social media star, then guess what? Good for you. Good for you, because now you can actually sell tickets, bring eyeballs to the product, and that's going to put you ahead of somebody who did 10 years at the Performance Center. Sorry, that's just the reality of it, okay? That's just the reality of it. But the only way that people are going to stop looking at Logan Paul as as somebody who doesn't belong is if he becomes a full-time WWE performer, somebody who appears on Raw and or SmackDown, every week, every other week, something like that. People got to really see him as like a wrestler. Otherwise, they're always going to see him as somebody who's there for the Hollywood rub, there to kind of, use WWE's platform to up his fame, promote his products, all that stuff. That's all it's going to be, because in WWE, you need to have a tagline. You need to have a narrative around the character no matter what. And until Logan Paul is putting enough history in the bank that people are going to see him as something else, then that's the tagline. The tagline is he's here as a celebrity, and he's going to be seen as a celebrity until people see him as a full-time wrestler. So I enjoyed diving into that question from my man Omar. If you guys have any questions you want me to answer, you can tweet them to me at talkinboutpod, or you can email me at talkinboutpod@gmail.com. I would love to dive into some of your questions that you might have for me to go through on the show. And again, if you guys like what we're doing here, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we drop some brand new content on this page. Now, February is coming to an end. We're at the end of February. And February is Black History Month. So I could not let this month go by without giving you a little Black History tribute of my own, where I want to just give you my top 5 Black History moments or Black wrestlers. You'll see. This is my tribute to Black History. My top 5 Black wrestlers or Black wrestling moments that are special to me. So number 5 on my list is Ron Simmons winning the WCW title for Big Van Vader. Now, I was pretty little when this happened, but I grew up in rural North Carolina, so I grew up on the NWA product. I grew up on the WCW product, and the Black wrestlers just never won. Like, it is what it is. And it was weird because, even when you would see like a big dude come to fight Ric Flair, like Tony Atlas, I think, came in. Junkyard Dog came in to fight Ric Flair. And these dudes always lost to Ric Flair. And I was like, huh? Like, in what world do these dudes look like they would lose a fight to Ric Flair? Like, it's just, give me a break. So when Ron Simmons hit that power slam on Big Van Vader, and he got the 3 count, like, I lost my mind. I could not believe it. You seen the video? If you go back and watch that clip, there's a little kid in the front row, and he is jumping up and down and losing his mind. That was me. That was me in my house watching that. I could not believe it. I could not believe Ron Simmons, with his Jerry curl, was the WCW world champion. I was like, bro, like, it felt too good to be true. I don't remember the run. I don't remember the matches. I don't remember the promos. I just couldn't believe it was real. Like, I could not believe that they let a black man be the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. And that was dope, man. That was dope. That was a great moment in my wrestling fandom, and I will never forget it. Number 4. Now, number 4 is not so much a moment, okay? It's more of a person, right? And the person is Too Cold Scorpio. Too Cold Scorpio. Now, again, Too Cold Scorpio, no wrestling company never really did anything good with him, right? Like, I mean, he was the ECW television champion for a while, but that was kind of after the fact. WCW didn't really do anything with him. WWF made him Flash Funk, and they still didn't do anything with him. So I don't have like a big, title win memory of Too Cold Scorpio that really hit me. He was just a vibe, man. Too Cold Scorpio was a vibe. I remember I remember, first of all, watching him wrestle was so much fun. Tuco Scorpio was a great wrestler. He was ahead of his time in terms of his move set and how he hit people. He was big enough to, be battling the heavyweights and all of that, but, it had him relegated to that cruiserweight, television title part of the show. But the thing about Tuco Scorpio that I will always remember is watching WCW Saturday Night. And they did the promo where Tuco Scorpio pulls up to the basketball court and there's kids out there playing basketball. And he's like, hey, man, why ain't y'all supposed to be in school? And the little kid's like, nah, we going to the game room. And then Tuco's like, nah, young man, you got to go to school. But we're not going to walk. We going to step. And then they just, they do this. Dog, yo, I'm telling you, like, I was hooked. And again, I was like, yo, just watching this. I'm like, yo, this dude could be one of my cousins. I'm like, yo, this dude is like, yo, he's so authentic. And like, yo, Tuco Scorpio, like he was dope, man. And like, again, it's a shame that, no wrestling promoter was in a place to really kind of just bottle what he was bringing to the table and sell it authentically, because that dude was cool, man. That dude was cool, and he had style, and his wrestling was dope. Like, I think Tuco Scorpio could have been a big deal, but he was definitely, like I said, he was a vibe, man. Tuco Scorpio was a vibe. And then also, when I saw that Dark Side of the Ring, and I found out that he beat Ric Flair's ass on that plane or that bus or whatever, I was like, yo, man, you might be a hero. So you get you go down in my book as one of the greats in Black history for me. My number 3 is another person. Again, not so much a moment, although this person had plenty of moments. Not so much a moment, just that this person was a vibe. My number 3 is The Rock. Now, the thing about The Rock is, right, like, we knew The Rock was black. We knew The Rock was black because they introduced him. They told you, like, his grandfather was Chief Peter Maivia. His dad was former first black tag team champions Rocky Johnson. So you knew Rock was black. But I still never, like, looked at The Rock as, like, a black wrestler, right? Like, I wasn't looking at him like that. Because I don't know. It didn't feel like it was, like, part of his presentation. I just like The Rock because he was cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was talking trash, talking smack to everybody, to the dudes, to the women, to everybody. I remember the moment when I was like, yo, I'm totally into this. I used to go kick it with my brother on the weekends, and he had a little hookup where we used to get a hookup at the video store. And one weekend we got a video from the video store of, they used to have those Coliseum home videos where they'd show, like, clips of the person's matches, and then there'd be, like, interviews in between. And so we got one it was The Rock. I think it was called The Rock Know Your Role or something like that. And again, like, there was, like, clips of his matches, clips of his promos, and, like, in between, he'd be, like, introducing the segments, but, totally in character, everything, kayfabe and all that. And again, just firing off the trash talk, like, crazy. There's one part where, like, there's, like, a female waitress that, like, brings him a drink or something, and he's like, oh, yeah, you wish, honey. And it was just like, yo, this dude is just, like, all the swag was just there, and it was in buckets. It was just like, yo, I was like, this dude is so cool. And there was a clip, I think, on that video of The Rock versus Triple H from SummerSlam. And it was the ladder match they had, and it was a really good match. And there's a part in this match where The Rock picks up Triple H, slams him down on the ladder, and then slowly kicks Triple H's arm in, does the arm, the elbow pad to do the people's elbow. And I was like, yo, why am I fighting this? This dude is dope. Like, I'm it was up with The Rock from that point on. I was like, yo, I'm into this. This is my guy. I'm rolling with him, like, no matter what. And yeah, The Rock won plenty of championships and, all the achievements you could ever, ask for a wrestler. But again, like, I wasn't, no part of the reasons why I like Rock was because of the fact that he was black. that was just a bonus, right? That was just a bonus. The fact that he was black, like The Rock was just my dude because he was that dude, man. So yeah, so number 3 on my list is The Rock. All right, so getting down to number 2 on my list. Number 2 on my list. This was a great moment. It was Kofi Mania. It was Kofi Mania, and honestly, I've never been more invested in a build to a match. Never. I don't think I've ever been more invested in the build to a match. As a matter of fact, I almost quit watching wrestling after Kofi lost at Elimination Chamber. I know. But but I was into it, dog. I was into it. I was that caught up. Like coming into that Elimination Chamber, I was just talking myself into it. I was like, yo, it might happen. They could take the title. They could put the title on him. He could lose it back to Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. I'm like, why not? Right? And I'm just thinking about, all the times, like, when Mark Henry did the fake retirement with the salmon jacket. And I was like, yo, dog, he was on fire. Like, why couldn't he get a shot with the title? And I was just thinking about all over the years, man, all the black wrestlers who I thought were plenty of good enough, right? Like, I used to have this conversation with my man, Brian Waters, all the time. We would talk about different black wrestlers. And I'd always say, like, yo, why can't this person be the champion? And I'd be like, oh, well, this person can't talk, or this person this or that. And I'm like, yo, dog, you could run down the list of, white dudes who had the championship, and all of them have some sort of flaw. But the thing is, they find a way to cover those flaws up, right? So to me, there was never any legitimate argument that somebody like a Shelton Benjamin or Kofi Kingston couldn't have been the WWE champion at any given point, right? Like, to me, there was no good, reasonable answer why they can't do it. Because at the end of the day, this is a TV show. And you can put the title on whoever you want to put the title on. The Miz has been a WWE champion twice. 2 times. So please, don't tell me, and I didn't say that to be disrespectful to Miz, but just the idea of, Miz beating people up will never be a thing. So yes, so I was very invested in Kofi Mania. Like I said, that Elimination Chamber when Kofi lost, I was hit, and I almost called it a wrap. I swear, I almost canceled my WWE Network and all of that, but I'm glad I stuck around. Okay, I'm glad I stuck around, and I remember the day of that WrestleMania. It was a crazy travel day for me. Me and my family were heading down to Orlando to do our week of vacation down at Disney. And that day of travel was hell. It was terrible. It was awful. Our flight got delayed in the morning, and just like throughout the whole day of travel, like just threw everything off. The kids were cranky. The wife was cranky. Kids were hungry. Everybody was hungry. And by the time we got to our resort in Florida, I was just like, yo, everybody was like, yo, let me just do the damn Ric Flair face plant and just pass out, because this day has been enough. Tomorrow we'll start with the parks. But there was no way I was missing the show. Wasn't gonna happen. I was tired as hell, but I posted up, put my laptop on, and I watched, WrestleMania, and I think I sat down just in time to I think the match before that was the women's tag team title match. But anyway, I sat down like kind of just in time to like sit down and settle in before the Kofi Daniel Bryan match. And yo, it was worth it. It was beyond worth it. Like that was one of the best moments in my wrestling fandom. It was like just that feeling. It felt like validation as a fan, right? Again, for all those things that I was just saying that I would talk to my man Brian about, and like, other people who would have this conversation, but like just the idea that why not him, right? Why not him? What was it so poor about this guy that he couldn't be the champion? It was only one thing. Right? And so it felt amazing to actually see that moment, like as weird as it felt, because this isn't like winning a real championship, like not really like winning a real sport, right? Like it was just, I don't know, man. It felt good to like get that validation, right? Like that we're good enough to be, placed in that spot. And it was dope seeing all the people celebrate it, people enjoying that moment, feeling the same emotions I was feeling. And so, Kofi Mania, by far, easily one of my favorite wrestling moments. And that's going to be number 2 on my list. Now, number 1 spot on my list. Excuse me. The number 1 spot on my list goes to Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks main event in WrestleMania. That was just, man, that was such an amazing moment, man. It was an amazing moment. The moment where, and Michael Cole timed this up perfectly, by the way. Like, after Sasha Banks' introduction, Sasha Banks looks in the camera, she goes, the best, right? And like, and then you hear Michael Cole over commentary to say, the first time 2 black women main event of WrestleMania. And that was huge, by the way, because WWE has this thing where they'll hint at something and then pull back from it. Case in point with Kofi Mania, right? Like with the Kofi story, they started out really kind of leaning into the fact of, all of the stats and evidence about how far black people have been away from getting to the WWE Championship or even having opportunities to compete for the WWE Championship. And then they kind of pulled back off that. They stopped kind of saying it. They didn't really say it explicitly, although everybody kind of knew that was the lead point of the story. And so before Sasha and Bianca's WrestleMania match, for Michael Cole to explicitly say, first time 2 black women ever main event of WrestleMania. And like he said that, and I know Bianca couldn't hear it, but like on cue, you started seeing her kind of tear up, just kind of recognizing the moment. And I ain't go front. I got a little dust in my eye watching that too, man. I was like, yo, man, this is so dope. It was dope for so many reasons. It was dope for so many reasons. Like, for one, like, but before I even get to that, right? As a wrestling fan, because of all the black talent over the years that I have felt conflicted about the way they've been presented / treated / in my opinion, not given a truly fair opportunity. Once I had children, I was always conflicted about, what I would let them watch, because in a segment like, I remember being a kid when DX did the blackface segment, and as a parent, I wouldn't let my kids watch that. And if I did, like, I would make them write a damn report on blackface. Like, you need to understand, like, why this is wrong, why this is a problem, and like, by the time we finish talking about them, I'd make them question whether or not they should ever watch that again. And if somebody had done that for me, I don't know if I'd be a wrestling fan today. But I remember like just feeling belittled, right? Like, even as a teenager, I remember watching the Triple H and DX do the blackface segment and thinking to myself, like, yo, like, why do you not care that this is belittling to me as a black person, right? Like, I remember thinking that. So having a daughter, I always would want to only put on wrestling when it was people wrestling like, Sasha Banks or Bailey, people who I felt like were presenting like a strong woman, right? Because I didn't want her to pick up on like, oh, this woman is the best because she's got the biggest boobs. And look at her. She's so glamorous. She's so cute. Like, that's why she's the best. Like, I never wanted her to pick up on that as like equate those things to being the best. So I very consciously would put on matches like Bianca Belair around her, right? Because I wanted my daughter to be able to see that, right? Like, I think it's very important to, those subliminal messages that you get, like little things. You ever hear WWE use the term like all-American girl, all-American woman? Have you ever heard them use that term in reference to a black person? Ever? Do you think you ever will? Probably not. They may say somebody was an all-American in their sport in college, but they never refer them as like that all-American girl or all-American guy, right? Because those terms never reserved for us, right? So having Bianca Belair there, I was so happy for my daughter, right? I was so happy to have that to just to, I believe as parents, right? It's my responsibility to, kind of mold, the things that they get to consume. But also, like you can't change the messages that are being sent out. So when you see somebody like Bianca Belair, who, Bianca Belair, listen, I said this, I did a podcast with Brian Waters, I think 3 years ago. And I said, I think Bianca Belair is the perfect professional wrestler. You know what I mean? Like, because she has everything. Like I saw what Bianca could be way back when, right? Like, I'm like, yo, just look at her, right? Like she's charismatic. She's beautiful. She's athletic, like super athletic, right? She's got the, the outfits, the move sets, like all of it. Like there's not flaws in her game, and she's only gotten better over time. But the question is always, right? I could see all this great potential in Bianca Belair, but just like everybody who I've mentioned on this list, when it comes to the black talent, good enough is not always good enough. In fact, it's rarely ever good enough, right? So I could see that Bianca had all of this talent, all of this charisma, all of this potential, but the idea of whether or not she would be allowed to realize it was a whole nother question, a whole nother thing. So to get to this moment where Bianca and Sasha got to go out there, have a main event match, and it was a great match, and then to have Bianca win, and now to have Bianca go on this run, like we're coming up on a year of Bianca Belair as the Raw Women's Champion, and she's been phenomenal. She's been everything, right? Like the, face of the company. She can go out there and have the matches. She can cut the promos. She can do it all. She can do it absolutely all. And she deserves it all. She deserves even more. And so to see Bianca get this moment and ascend to that top spot was just absolutely amazing. I could not I even now, just thinking about it, right? Like it still just gets me like a little, it's just her getting what she deserves. But right, again, that's kind of the story of being black in America, right? Just getting what you deserve. But it's just her getting what she deserves. Like she is that good. She nobody's propping her up to be something that she's not. She's more than good enough to be in that spot. She's got it all. You know what I mean? Like I could go on and on. I could gush on and on and on about how good and amazing Bianca Belair is. But seeing her have that crowning moment with Sasha Banks, to me, it was great, man. And like I said, they've done right by her. Like if she dropped that belt at WrestleMania and walks away and never wrestles again, she's a legend. She's a legend in this game. And and you can see it, by the way, that for anybody who ever has thought, and by the way, I'm pretty sure a big reason why we even have to have this conversation is because a lot of people who were in charge of, booking and selling and promoting these shows felt that the white audience wouldn't gravitate to stories that feature black talent. And what Bianca is showing, if you look in the crowds, right, the signs of kids of, from all types of backgrounds, they got there, and by the way, they've been trying so hard to find a way to tastefully sell the ponytail. I was on WWE Shop the other day and I saw they had, the hat with the ponytail. I think they found a comfortable place. I think the hat with the ponytail is okay. But they tried so many ways to, try and sell that ponytail because it's such a, a big part of her presentation, and they've been looking for a way to do it in a non-offensive way. But I think they might have found it with the hat. But if you look out in the crowd, you see all the kids, you know what I mean? You see the girls of all colors that are gravitating to her. Because again, she's got it all, man. She's so special. She's made WWE understand sassy black woman, accept and sell sassy black woman in a way that Naomi never could, right? Like Naomi was amazing too, right? But they didn't get her. They didn't get it, or they weren't ready. They weren't ready to embrace it and to just let it be, right? But Bianca is so good that she makes them embrace it. She makes them embrace it, and she shows them that it's something that can be sold. So so Bianca and her ascension to being the top of the women's division, especially that main event match with her and Sasha Banks at WrestleMania. That's my number one spot, man. That's my number one spot. And that's my top five black wrestlers / wrestling related moments in history. So it is Black History Month, but February is almost over. But that doesn't mean that we should stop talking about great Black history. Keep talking about Black history. Keep acknowledging Black history. Keep listening to the Black people around you, right? Keep supporting Black creators. Let me give a shout out to some of the, great Black creators that I know. Obviously, shout out to my man, Brian H. Waters. Like I said, he's watching him ascend throughout this, wrestling media, really just putting in work and connecting so many people all over the business. It's just really dope to see. He's a great brother. And watching him shine, man, just makes me feel so good because he's a genuine person. If you ever get to meet Brian, you'll see, he's a great dude. He leaves a great impression on you. So shout out to him. Shout out to my man Duke, always here for the drama. Shout out to Duke. Shout out to all the big pods out there, man. All the big pods out there. The Black Announce Table, the Black Wrestling Podcast, man. I'm a big fan of those dudes. By the way, speaking of Black wrestling, I was listening to an episode of Where's Buffy the other night, and Cal and Fam and two other brothers that I didn't know. They were having a great discussion about Black fatherhood, and the way we look at these things and approach them has kind of evolved over the years. And it's just something I definitely encourage everybody to go out there and consume. It's real good stuff. But yeah, listen, everybody who is out there supporting and bigging up Black people, shout out to you. Shout out to everybody who is, putting on, for the culture, all that good stuff. I love y'all, man. Black History Month, like I said, it shouldn't just be like a 1 month thing. We should always be proud of us. All right. So that's all I got. I'm about to wrap it up and get up out of here. One fun thing that I want to put on your radar is I'm actually going to be reviewing this season of Bel-Air. So stay tuned to all the social medias and I'll tell you when those reviews are coming out. They'll be up here on YouTube. And if you really want to know when they're coming out, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know every time I drop some brand new heat. Okay? Yes, very much. I'm happy to be doing this. I'm having so much fun. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Tweet me at Talkin Bout Pod. I'm at Talkin Bout Pod on all your socials. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. Okay, tweet your boy, holla at your boy, tweet me, I tweet back. Tell a friend to tell a friend. If you really want to bring more people into the conversation, that would be the best thing you can do to help out the show. I love you guys. I have so much fun doing this show. Until next time, I'm TW. Peace.